My fiancée got breast enhancement surgery and I am no longer attracted to her. As the title says, my girlfriend and fiancé of 2.5 years recently got breast enhancement surgery. She had been saying she wanted to do it ever since we first began dating, and while I expressed to her that I didn't think it was necessary, as I loved the way she looked before, I always said I would support whatever decision she made because it is her body and she is the one who has to live in it. About a year ago, her mother died after a long battle with cancer, in which she actually went into remission after a double mastectomy, but then the cancer eventually came back and metastasized to her pancreas. It was a horribly painful and unpleasant experience for everyone in her family. I had met my girlfriend after her mum went into remission and after the surgery, so I wasn't there for her for the first battle, which from what I've heard was very traumatic and painful in its own way. When her mother passed, she inherited a fairly large sum of money. Nothing crazy, but enough to put down a payment on a house and finally pay for the surgery that she wanted. When she told me she had made the appointment to meet with a plastic surgeon, I was supportive, but again reinforced that I loved the way she looked now and suggested that maybe her desire to do this now was connected to her grief with her mother's passing. She pretty much dismissed that notion since she said she'd wanted to get implants since she was in high school before her mum ever had cancer or the mastectomy. Fair enough. Fast forward about 6 months ago to the surgery, and it goes off without a hitch. Because she was recovering for about a month or so, I didn't really see the finished product right away, and then when I did, they were much bigger than I had expected. She told me that there was still swelling, and that would go down, and it would look more natural. And the swelling did go down, but they've never really looked natural to me. Maybe because I was just so accustomed to the way they looked before the surgery that I'm having trouble seeing them any other way. For the past few months, our sex life has been okay, but it definitely has dwindled a bit. We couldn't really have sex while she was recovering, and after she was feeling up to it, we overcompensated a bit by having lots of sex. But it was still before I had an idea what they looked like, since when we had sex, she would still be in a sports bra and or a baggy t-shirt that stayed on during. And I was very cautious not to grab at them or anything, since they were still tender for so long after. Eventually, she completely recovered, and immediately I wasn't thrilled. But I lied and said I thought they looked great. Thing is, I don't hate them or anything. The part where I started losing attraction to her has been that since she got the surgery, she gets a lot more attention from random strangers. Which I've never minded. She got attention from strangers in the past too. She's a beautiful woman now and before. But since the surgery, she seemed so much more receptive to the attention that it's just become a total turn-off for me. I didn't initially bring it up because I thought maybe I was just being paranoid, and even if I wasn't, it would likely be regarded that way and dismissed either way. But eventually I started to make little comments here and there when she would flirt back with the delivery guy or whatever. Nothing terrible, but like, not sure he needs a tip after all, or something like that. She got annoyed, and eventually I did bring up my discomfort, and she did what I assumed she would, which was accusing me of being paranoid and reading into things, and saying what I thought was happening was not. And then a couple of weeks ago, I found out that while out with her girlfriends, she was convinced to enter a wet t-shirt contest. A friend of mine happened to be at the bar that they were at, and just sent me a text telling me how great my girlfriend's chest looked. He was joking and later said he framed it that way because he was uncomfortable letting me know, but knew he needed to let me know in case I wasn't aware. When I confronted her about it, she didn't understand why I was upset, which is just symptomatic of this entire personality change she seems to have undergone since the procedure. I tried to explain that if she had told me that was happening, I probably would have been fine, but the secrecy and just her general dismissiveness of my concerns and enjoying the extra attention was hurtful. She seemed to think that because she won the wet t-shirt contest, I should just be okay with it, and that I am lucky to have her. This simply isn't the person I fell in love with. I know I might be overreacting a bit, but I didn't love how the surgery turned out to begin with, and now this entire personality shift has been jarring enough to make me lose interest in being intimate with her at all. For the past 2 weeks, we've only had sex 2 times, and I've even had to reject her advances. I tried to be as nice as possible, but when I tell her I am not in the mood now, she gets very angry and frustrated and kind of throws mini tantrums, which is also very new. Like she thinks she's doing me a favor by even wanting to have sex with me, and I am now somehow ungrateful. I've had some of my friends, male and female alike, mimic this kind of sentiment when I've tried to discuss it, hence bringing it to Reddit. I believe the person I fell in love with is still in there somewhere, but I might just be kidding myself. I am at the point where I want to suggest couples counseling, but the one time I remotely touched on the subject, she was not receptive to the idea. I don't know what else to do though. She's like a completely different person now, and I don't know that I like that person very much. And now in the comments, she said that I was lucky to have her. She was doing me a favor by wanting to have sex with me. Oh hell nah, F that crap. She's getting more and more full of herself, especially with the attention of others. I have read many stories like this, and let me tell you, it never ends well. My advice? Break up. You guys clearly aren't compatible anymore, and eventually, you'll start resenting each other. End it now before it gets worse. 100% this. She doesn't see OP as an equal anymore, which is a recipe for long-term disaster. She already is showing red flags of possible future cheating and overall emotional toxicity and abuse in my opinion. Sneaking around about stuff like a wet t-shirt contest, which is, in my opinion, sexual, and she probably flirted with guys there if she flirted with delivery men right in front of OP. Flirting with men right in front of OP, which is disrespectful to OP and their relationship, her being dismissive of OP's feelings and concerns, and then deflects it back onto and makes it OP's fault. Red flag for any partner. Making him feel lesser or that he is lucky that she's with him. Abusers or toxic assholes use this technique to make their victims deal with their crap for longer and make their victims' self-esteem plummet. If OP's friends are repeating the sentiment that he should feel lucky, he should say he would feel lucky if his girlfriend of 2.5 years didn't do a 180 and flirt with other dudes right in front of him while telling him he should be lucky she essentially doesn't sleep with others. Then ask if any of them would feel lucky, or even that their girlfriend remotely loves them in that situation. OP, never be someone's second choice, and you are worth it. She has your love and attention, but now that she has the attention of others, she won't be able to get enough just from you. Stop having sex with her altogether, because not gonna lie, if she is flirting with men openly in front of you, what could she have been doing with the men at the wet t-shirt contest? I would get STI/STD screening and try to move out if you're able to. If people give you crap, tell them you have enough self-respect not to stay with someone who flirts with others in front of their own partner and doesn't apologize, but puts down their partner when called out. She can be lucky you are setting her free so she can trap someone else. Good luck, OP. If anything, get therapy for yourself, because having multiple people tell you that, and your partner act like that, can mess up your self-esteem. These types of surgeries, meaning cosmetic, seem to screw some people mentally. Obviously the goal is to look better, but I think that sometimes it goes to the person's head, and they become someone completely different. This happened with my sister who had bariatric surgery. She never had anyone hitting on her before the surgery, and after, she went a little crazy. I thought it would pass and she would be the same person as before, but it just never happened. Her personality changed and was never the same. I've come to terms with it. She is my sister, and I love her regardless, but our relationship is not the same. She is showing you who she is now. Believe it, accept it, and either choose to stay or get out now and cut your losses. You should move on. You are no longer compatible. It sucks, but it is what it is. You aren't going to change her back now, and it's okay to not like the person she has become. Move on. If you want to salvage what you had, you should go to counseling together, but it'll only work if she's on board. If not, then she's made her choice, and now it's time for you to make yours. And now on to the update. First, I want to thank everyone for their helpful and reassuring insight. After the post, I was still uncertain as to what to do. I didn't want to spring anything on her as I felt from her perspective, it might seem like my frustrations and concerns were coming out of nowhere unless she first provoked something, and I didn't want to bring up the past after as much time had already gone by because it felt petty of me to do so. I guess what I didn't realize at the time is I had become pretty distant and tense with her, which she brought up pretty quickly as well as the fact that I was no longer initiating sex with her, and completely unreceptive to any advances that she made. I told her flat out that I felt her personality had completely changed and I was having a lot of second thoughts about the relationship. She got very upset and asked me why I had not mentioned anything. I told her that I had tried to, multiple times, and she was completely dismissive of it and accusing me of being jealous or paranoid. I asked her when have I ever been either of those things throughout our relationship, and she had to admit that I have never been a jealous or paranoid person in the past. While she admitted that, she still said that she felt her personality was still the same, and that while she may not know the reason for my perception, it was still wrong. She apologized for accusing me of being jealous, but said I'm wrong. It was weird because it felt like it suddenly got turned on me and that it somehow was all on me. I was pretty stunned and felt like again, she was being dismissive of my point of view. She said she didn't know what else to say. We agreed to put a pin in it for the night, as I was kind of speechless and talking to her felt a bit like talking to a wall anyhow. That night, she tried to initiate again, and I said no and kind of snapped at her. I was quite flummoxed and said something to the effect of, "Wow, you didn't hear a frickin' word I said tonight, did you?" And apparently that broke her. She became so aggressive and hostile in a way that I had never experienced before. She was hysterical, screaming, thrashing, throwing the pillows and bedding around wildly, knocking over a lamp that broke, and that didn't slow her down. Then she started pushing me, telling me to get the F out and that she never wanted to see me again. At first, I was resistant, pleading with her to calm down, but she was just getting more and more aggressive, so I just grabbed my wallet and keys and ran to my car in my socks and boxers. I could still hear her slamming doors from inside my car outside of our house. Her house. I just drove around all night thinking. I was shaking. I was genuinely scared. I was angry. I think I was in shock. I didn't have my phone, so I couldn't call a friend or my parents to go to their house, and I didn't want to show up in the middle of the night under these circumstances anyway. I just drove around all night and I didn't sleep. I waited until about 8 a.m. to go back to the house, which was around when she would leave to go to work, but her car was still there, so I drove and got breakfast and coffee at a drive-thru, and when I came back about an hour later, she had eventually left. By this point, I am feeling pretty calm. I go inside to grab some of my things, and the entire living room is just a mess. Chairs tipped over, the coffee table completely shifted out of place, a plant ripped from a pot with dirt everywhere. You can tell she tried to clean it up a little, but didn't get very far. I went to our bedroom where my phone and clothes were, and in the middle of the hallway on the way to the bedroom was a pile of all of my things, including my phone which had a broken screen. Fortunately, it was still functioning, so I called into work and spent the next 4 to 5 hours packing up a bunch of my stuff and loading it into my car. I also called a friend of mine and drove over to his house. He said I could crash with him for a bit while I figure out what to do next. Later that day, I sent her a text saying that we should talk, and she responded there was nothing to talk about, and that she thinks that it would be better for the both of us if I find somewhere else to stay for the time being. I explained that I already had done so and was staying with my friend, and then she went radio silent. She didn't respond to that or any follow-up texts that I sent. About a week after all of this, she sent me a text that simply said, I need to figure out a time to come and pick up the rest of my things. I asked if she would be there so we could talk, and she said she had nothing to say to me, and I should come get the rest of my things when she isn't there. So I tried calling her, and she didn't answer. I sent her a text asking if she was just done with us, and then she said, yes, I thought I made that clear. Which, maybe she did. I thought it was just an episode and we would at least talk. Later that week, I went and picked up the rest of my things and sent a text saying I left my keys on the counter. She said she was getting the locks changed anyway. I have known this woman for nearly 3 years, and all of this along the way is new. She was always communicative and rarely hostile. She might pout or be passive-aggressive, but this felt like a full-blown tantrum. She was seething like a feral animal or something. She was completely unapologetic and calculatingly cold in a way she had never been before. A few weeks later, after moving into my own apartment, I found out that she was already seeing someone new. I don't know if she started seeing him while we were together. It wouldn't shock me. At some point in the last year, she stopped respecting me, and when I think back, there were probably signs before the surgery. Maybe even wanting to get the surgery. I don't know. The whole thing feels like such a blur. I think I may have been in denial for a while. Maybe I'm just telling myself that now to feel better about it. I have not heard from her in weeks, and I have not tried to contact her on my end either. I did receive a missed call from her in the middle of the night about a week ago, but there was no message or text, and I didn't bother following up to see what she wanted. I am not ready to speak with her again. I don't know when or if I'll ever be. The last couple of weeks with her, and after the big blow-up, were the worst days of my life. I have never felt so meaningless or disregarded, and she was the person who I trusted most in the world, at one point. Anyway, sorry this isn't a more positive update, but a few people had asked. I would have posted it sooner, but it's taken me a while to be comfortable talking about what happened. I still get upset thinking about it. I'm hoping writing it out would be helpful, but honestly, I'm just sad and upset again right now. Fortunately, I have my whole life ahead of me, and I'm fortunate in that I still have plenty going for me. I definitely feel more cynical now than I did before, which sucks, and I'm hoping that passes. And now in the comments. Anyway, sorry this isn't a more positive update. You know, after reading your previous post, this end result is actually pretty positive to me. You had mentioned in your previous post if the woman you fell in love with was still inside somewhere, and to be honest, my first thought was that the woman who was inside had actually now broken free, and the woman you fell in love with is long gone. I'm sorry this took the path it took, but I think that in the long run, you are far better off knowing now than down the road and 10 years into an unhappy marriage. You do have your whole life ahead of you. And don't worry about the cynicism. It's not as false as you think. Even those of us commenting have our own motives for doing so, whether it's fishing for karma, hoping to get noticed by an OP, or simply using stories and relationship advice to improve our own relationships. Everyone has their own reasons for anything they do. It's a matter of deciding whether or not you're okay with that. Here is my take on why she flipped out on you. She has had some personal insecurities for quite a while, hence why she wanted the breast augmentation. After what, to her, was a great success with the surgery results, she imagined that she would be even more desirable. According to your post, it seems that she did get a lot of attention that she was craving, but from other people, not you. When it all came out, and you explained what to her seemed unimaginable, that the results of her boob job, both how they look and her personality shift, were unattractive to you, her self-esteem came crashing down to a low that it has never been before. Even with the surgery, she was still not desirable enough. All the insecurities came rushing back and magnified, so she lashed out at you and cut you off as a way to cope with her own pain. Basically, hurt people hurt people. This. Breasts have a big place in her life. They killed her mum, for example. In some way, maybe she was showing her chest who was boss. She wanted these for ages. They were going to make everything in her life well again. They were going to make her life awesome. And for her, they did. She was so invested in this chest. So when OP said, "Well, actually no, they look fake and I hate them," the dream she had spent years building up came crashing down. Her brain short-circuited. And this is why I always say there should be legally mandated counseling before cosmetic surgery, because it's never the chest that's the problem. Anyone who trashed their belongings and someone else's belongings because they can't control their temper is not someone you want to be with either. She has shown you who she really is, and I hope you can move on from this to a better relationship. Things will get better. You've dodged an obviously psychotic bullet here. You said, "I don't know if she started seeing him while we were together." I don't think anyone would be surprised by this either. She will have a ton of attention from guys that only care about her chess and fuck all otherwise. Once she gets tired of being used and wants something actually fulfilling, she will be upset that there are no good men left that will give her a second look. I didn't read the previous post, but it seems to me the best thing that could have happened did for your sake. Once someone becomes that volatile in a relationship, there are other factors in play with them that you probably aren't aware of. It's very possible this new guy was already in the picture and her personality change came due to guilt or something related to that. I would seriously suggest never answering your phone if she calls and moving on with your life without her as a thought. As tough as that may be for the time being, you'll eventually find someone new and better for you, and all of this will be a memory. This is just so sad. It feels like there must be something else going on here. Maybe the girlfriend started taking painkillers or something post-surgery. I don't think bigger boobs generally make someone change to this degree. Yeah, maybe her mother dying was the catalyst. Everyone is glossing over that. My husband went through a less intense, but still awful similar mood destabilization after his dad passed away. He has always been almost a placidly calm person, and all of a sudden, he had a hair-trigger temper. He literally got in a screaming fight with a Walmart checker. I am so grateful that he was willing to listen to me begging him to get into therapy, that I was at the end of my rope, and our marriage was effectively over. This was over a year after his dad had passed. I am not a monster. It did take our marriage almost ending for him to begin therapy. His dad had always taught him that mental health problems were a sign of weakness. He got a handle on his grief and was able to grieve healthily and to learn how to communicate effectively. It was an utterly terrifying year for me and my girls. He was someone that we didn't know and couldn't predict his moods. Grief is weird. All I could think of the whole time was that it sounded so much like she hadn't dealt with her mother's death and was acting out and self-destructing. Anyway guys, that's where I'm going to leave today's episode. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.